Building a business that pays you well is one kind of success. Building one that contributes to something beyond you is another kind entirely. And the owners who integrate both tend to feel more sustained than those who have only one. Thank you for listening to Routine is Revenue. This is your place to build routines and bank results. I'm Ildikó Sealey. I've been nicknamed the Routine Queen, focused on building businesses that are healthy, sustainable, and connected to something that actually matters beyond the bottom line. Now, this episode is for you if contribution and service feel like things you will get to once the business is more established. But if you are ready to consider that giving and building are not opposites, let's go. This episode is Routine Reset 24, and we look at philanthropy that sits in the spiritual health pillar of the T.E.M.P.L.E method. Philanthropy is the deliberate practice of contributing to others, whether through time, resources, knowledge, or platform, and how that contribution feeds back into your own sense of direction and meaning. Vaishali Shah, who joined us in the last interview episode, shared something that has stayed with me since the recording. She comes from a family with 4 generations of business ownership, and one of the things she learned from her father was this: from the moment you make a profit, 10% goes to good causes. Not when you have more, not when things are more stable, from the very start. And that principle, built into the business from the outset rather than bolted on later, is a fundamentally different relationship with success. Now, most of us might think that philanthropy is something for later, once the mortgage is paid, once the business is profitable enough, or once we have more to give. But that logic means it rarely arrives, because there is always something that needs the resource first. I've given to animal charities for many years, quietly and consistently, because in my view, animals cannot advocate for themselves. They cannot name their hurt, and often they depend on the humans around them, sadly, after they were hurt by the humans. And that has always moved me. It's not a grand gesture, but it's consistent, and it is my contribution. The other shape that giving has taken in my life is professional. I spent 14 years in social housing working with people in difficult situations, and a friend used to say that she didn't understand how I had the strength to help people who didn't want to help themselves. But now, working as a business strategist, I have the luxury of helping people who do want to help themselves. Now, as we explore with values alignment in Routine Reset 6, when your actions match who you say you are, internal friction reduces. And philanthropy is values alignment in action. It is the point where your business and your deeper self are pulling in the same direction. Now, philanthropy doesn't have to be financial, and it doesn't even have to be large to be meaningful. It can be a percentage of profit directed to a cause, as Vaishali practices. It can be a pro bono hour given to an organization that can't afford your full rate. Or it can be knowledge shared freely, like a podcast or a newsletter or a conversation that costs you an hour and changes someone's direction. The principle that makes it work is consistency over scale. Because a small, regular contribution built into the structure of your business compounds in impact and in the way it shapes your identity as a business owner. It tells you and others what the business is for. The practical starting point is simply to decide what cause, community, or form of service aligns with what you actually care about. Not what sounds impressive, and certainly not what your industry or others expect, but rather what genuinely moves you, because contributions that are disconnected from genuine care tend not to last. And then build it in, as a line in the budget, as a recurring calendar commitment, or as a policy rather than a mood. Because when it is structural, it will happen. On the contrary, when it's only optional, other things will undoubtedly take priority. But you see, the 14 years that I spent in social housing were not wasted. Though for a long time, I wasn't sure. Because the people I worked with were often in crisis, often resistant, or caught in cycles that felt impossible to interrupt. And yes, it was draining in ways that other work had not been. And my friend was right. It took a particular kind of strength to keep showing up for people who were not always ready to receive the help. But I now realize that I learned loads in those years, about human resilience, about what people actually need when they are struggling, and about the difference between help that empowers and help that creates dependency, and about knowledge that is now foundational to how I work with clients. You know the greatest lesson? Sometimes the giving that costs most in the moment is the giving that returns the most in the long run. So, what if contribution stays something that you will get to later? Yes, your business grows. Yes, success accumulates. But you might find yourself that something feels missing, a sense of purpose beyond the transactions, or a connection to something larger than the revenue. Because without it, even a thriving business can feel strangely hollow. Not necessarily immediately either, but maybe gradually over time. So you might end up with a quiet sense that what you are building doesn't quite add up to what you thought it would. And that might be because philanthropy is not a luxury for when you have more. It's part of what makes the building feel worth doing in the first place. You see, businesses that last tend to be the ones that stand for something beyond themselves. So when do you decide what your business stands for beyond what it earns? When you are more established? When your profit is larger? I would say now. Bid whatever you have, even if it's just 1 hour a month on a cause or one consistent act of contribution. So has this shifted how you are thinking about what your business stands for? Yes? Well, your next step is simple. I'm leading the Routine Revolution, and I invite you to a discovery call to chat about what your business is actually in service of. Please visit routinerevolution.co.uk to register your interest. And for now, build something that matters beyond the bottom line. And remember, a healthier you makes a wealthier you.